So the Batman, it's finally here. After many years of development hell, it's finally here. Let's just dive in. So the Batman was directed by Matt Reeves and it stars Robert Pattinson, Zoe Kravitz, Paul Dano, Colin Farrell, Andy Serkis, John Turturro. And it's about Batman. It's about 2 years into his time as Batman. He's working more with Commissioner Gordon, played by Jeffrey Wright. And there's this terrorist known as the Riddler going around, and Batman must figure out what's going on exactly and how it all connects back to him. So this was a movie that, admittedly, the trailers at first didn't excite me, but the more I watched the trailers, I was enamored with them. I thought the trailers were really good. I was really excited for this movie. It was one of my most anticipated movies for the year. I'm a big Batman fan for the most part, and so I was curious mainly because of this new direction. I thought the trailers were really good again, and I'm glad that this movie didn't disappoint me. I'm really glad that I saw this movie. And while I do have minor issues with this movie, I still think it's really good overall, and I will be seeing it again tonight. So, also, spoiler-free review. I'm going to try to do a spoiler video, I don't know, probably Sunday. And also, I'm going to try to do a ranking video of most of the Batman movies. But until then, let's just go into it without spoilers. So, what works in this movie? A lot of the performances in this movie are actually really good. Robert Pattinson, he's been really good in a lot of movies. He was really good in Good Time, The Lighthouse, and here he is as Batman. And I think he's really good in the role. I really like his take on Batman. A lot of the movie is him as Batman, which I'm going to talk about him as Bruce Wayne later on, but I really liked him as Batman. Zoe Kravitz I thought was pretty good. I didn't love her as much as I liked someone like Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman, but also I'm going to talk about her a little bit more. But I still really liked her performance overall. Uh, Paul Dano, though, as the Riddler. The Riddler was a character I was never a big fan of. I didn't like Jim Carrey as the Riddler. What they did on Gotham was fine, but I don't know, I still had issues with it. Paul Dano modernized it in a way that I really enjoyed. I looked at him as the Riddler the same way I looked at Heath Ledger as the Joker. I think he was incredible. He was terrifying. He was phenomenal in this movie. Jeffrey Wright as Commissioner Gordon, I thought he was pretty good too. I kind of would have liked a little bit more with him, and I also really liked his relationship with Batman throughout the movie. It was really good as well. Also, Batman's relationship with Catwoman in this movie, it's interesting. I don't know if it's necessarily a great relationship, but it's intriguing enough. Also, Colin Farrell in this movie is the last really good performance in this movie. I thought Colin Farrell as the Penguin was probably going to chew up the scenery, and you kind of saw a little bit of that in the trailer. He actually doesn't chew up the scenery. He's actually really good in this movie too. He's in the movie just enough, and he never crosses any lines like Danny DeVito did. But I really liked his performance too. It was subtle, it was creepy, but it was still really good. Also, the action is really good in this movie too. I love the action throughout. You can kind of see it more clearly than, I don't know, something like Batman Begins. It doesn't look cartoonish. I thought it was really good. The cinematography by Greg Fraser, it's dark, it's gritty. I thought it was interesting. Sometimes it may be a little too dark, which, Batman is way too dark already, but whatever. But I still really like the way it was shot. Also, the musical score by Michael Giacchino. Admittedly, I didn't like it at first. Like the opening credits, I didn't really care for with the musical score. But by the end, I thought it was really good, and I loved how he incorporated like all these other songs into his score, which I thought was really effective. And also, I kind of really like seeing Robert Pattinson basically as Detective Batman. A lot of the movie is him as the Batman, which I'm okay with, honestly. It is called the Batman after all. And I really like seeing him more as the detective version of Batman rather than like simply just being the superhero Batman. It's like we've seen that way too much, and we've only gotten like glimpses of it in all the other Batman movies, but here it's definitely leaned into more the detective side than anything else. And I also really like, and this is something that kind of annoys me with a lot of stuff, with especially a lot of new Batman stuff, they just show the origin story again. And this may be the only spoiler I'll give, but they don't show it. They don't show it. Thank God they don't show it. I don't need to see Batman's parents die anymore. I'm done with it. But I'm glad it didn't show us like what we already know and kind of just dives right into it. And also, there's a lot of surprising turns in this movie that I didn't think would actually, there were a lot of surprising risks with this movie, and I thought a lot of them did work for the most part. It was a unique take on stuff we kind of already knew. And again, for the most part, it does work for me. And also, I will say this, I think it's one of the better Batman movies in recent years. I will say this is probably the best Batman movie since The Dark Knight. And I was a big Dark Knight fan. Not so much these days, I still really enjoy that movie. But this may be the best Batman movie since then. So, are there any issues with this movie? I have a few issues, but mostly they're just nitpicks. First off, the Riddler, even though I thought he was really terrifying, he was really creepy, and I thought I thought Paul Dano did a really good job in the movie, I thought his clues were terrible. His clues were not as deep as the movie suggests they are. I figured them out before Batman did. And, like, I'm kind of just sitting there waiting for him to say, oh, it's this is the answer. And I'm like, yeah, I kind of figured that out already because it's literally super easy. So, and a lot of it I figured out immediately. Pretty much all of his clues I figured out immediately, which was a little disappointing, honestly. I wish they were a little bit more complex than they were in the movie. And also, I kind of wish there was some characters that were used a little bit better. Like, I mentioned Selena Kyle earlier. Kind of would have liked to have seen a little bit more of her, to be honest, but it is called The Batman after all. Also, I kind of would have liked to see a lot more Alfred. I thought he was the biggest disappointment of this movie. Andy Serkis, he's a really good actor. I thought he was wasted as Alfred. I kind of wanted to see a little bit more of him. Also, I kind of wanted to see a little more of his take on Robert Pattinson's take on Bruce Wayne a bit. A lot of it just kind of seemed like, yeah, I mentioned it's mostly him as the Batman, and I think that does work. But I kind of wanted to see, like, how he is as Batman versus how he is as Bruce Wayne. Which, looking back on the Nolan trilogy, that was interesting. But here, it's only him as the Batman for the most part. Which is just good, which I really liked. But at the same time, kind of want to know what Bruce Wayne is like. And also, this also kind of annoyed me. I try not to talk about this. When characters do obviously dumb things, I try not to talk about that because, characters do dumb things all the time in pretty much every movie. Characters do really dumb things in this movie. I'm not going to go into details, but there's this one side character who does something really stupid. It's like, okay, this is what's going to happen. And it does happen. And I hated it because I'm like, yeah, what did you expect? It was really annoying to me. And also, probably the biggest complaint you will ever hear about this movie, it is way too damn long. It is almost 3 hours long. And really, this movie could have cut out probably a half hour, and I would have given it a 4 out of 4, honestly. But at the same time, I'm also kind of thinking, I don't know where to cut just yet. Maybe if I watch it again tonight, I will figure out where I would cut it, or maybe I'll say, maybe it's perfect as a 3-hour movie. And I kind of also felt throughout this movie that it kind of feels like this is like a solo movie, like it's going to be the only Batman movie. Like, it just feels like there's going to be no other parts, for the most parts, until the very end. But we'll talk about that in a spoiler video, because there's a lot to talk about with spoilers. So, I still really like this movie. I think the acting's great, the action's great, it looks great, the music's great. I love seeing this new world of Batman. And even though most of my nitpicks are like, characters do dumb things, would have liked to see more characters, it's way too long. And again, the Riddler's clues are way too easy. I think most people solved them before the characters in the movie did. But I would still recommend seeing this. I'm going to go see it again. Honestly, I would have wished I would have seen it in IMAX. There are so many moments in this movie where I'm like, I really wished I saw this thing in IMAX. Like when he's flying through Gotham City. Or the car chase between him and Penguin. I would have loved to have seen this thing in IMAX. It was really great to see. And again, some nitpicks. I don't know, maybe they'll annoy me more the second time. Maybe they will, maybe I'll gloss over them when I watch it again. But overall, I still really enjoyed The Batman. I'll give it 3.5 out of 4 stars. See it. So, what did you think of The Batman? Also, who's your favorite Batman actor? Comment down below, subscribe to the channel. This is Pat. Stay safe.